Hello, and welcome back to the Basic Bee podcast. I'm so happy to have you here, as well as my friend Krystle. We're going to be talking about how to repurpose content in a way that supports your SEO strategy. But before I bring her on, of course, I'm going to introduce you to her. Krystle Straub is a content and tech strategist who helps powerhouse women expand their reach outside of social media with simple strategies. And I know she's got a bit of a pivot happening, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. But it's been so fun to watch her journey. I can't even remember initially how we connected. Krystle, do you have any idea?
I don't know. I feel like it might have been Brendan McGowan. I don't know. Somehow, some way, I just crossed paths with you a long time ago.
I know. And then here we are.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about, I know that I'm sort of in a little bit of a rebrand pivot type of thing as well. And I feel like I constantly trip over my words when I'm explaining it. So you have permission to do that. But tell us about what's happening right now in your business world.
Yeah. So I feel like I've pivoted a lot. More service-wise, I've gone from social media manager to VA to OBM to content writer and tech. And this is the first time actually niching down. And I resisted it for so long. In my brain, I've always had an idea of the type of women I like to work with. I'm like, all right, she's a woman. Mm-hmm. She is usually type B, she's kind of scatterbrained. And I just bring calm to the chaos of that. And then a couple months ago, I just had it on my heart. I'm like, you know what? I need to dive deeper into this. And I was really thinking about the type of content I'd like to write. And I'm like, travel. I love writing for my travel agents. And I was a travel agent for over 10 years. I'm like, this was in front of me this whole time. Why have I not tapped into it? And I sat on it for a while. So I'm like, is this an emotional thing? Because as entrepreneurs, we're very emotional, oh, I want to do it. So I kind of sat on it. And there was just a bunch of signs and there was a piece around it. And the moment that I announced it on Threads and Instagram, it was a weight was lifted. It was weird and just tons of support and things just feel clear. And I'm like, oh, this is why they kept saying niching down. I was just very stubborn. So that's what I'm leaning into. I'm still going to serve the type B women that I love, but my content's more going to be tailored now to the travel industry, which I'm super excited about.
That is really exciting. I was so happy for you when I saw you announcing that because I've definitely done that with services or with groups of people that I'm talking to. And it's really funny because I'm sure maybe you've even had these questions of people being like, but can you still help me? And it's yeah, just the words I'm using and the type of content I'm sharing is going to be more focused on that group or on that service or whatever.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I'm so stoked for you.
Thank you.
So let's get into this whole repurposing conversation because I don't think I've had anybody on, definitely not for a full-blown conversation on it. So I'll hit you with a hard-hitting question. Why do you believe repurposing can actually save people time? Because I feel so many of us are wait, what?
I feel it's just a mode of survival, honestly, for content because content is a beast. And I think so many times we forget that in businesses, people are literally hired a marketing department to market our business, to create content. But yet when you are a small business owner or solopreneur, you are doing marketing, you're doing customer service, you're doing all of the things. So more times than not, content ends up sucking up the most of our time. So like I said, I started out as a VA and a lot of my work was actually writing emails for my clients. And obviously not being them and sometimes not being in their field, I'm like, okay, I have to write an email to their subscribers. What am I going to write about? So instead of starting from scratch or having to pull them into a meeting, I would go onto their socials, their freebies, their websites, and I would find the content and repurpose it. And it saved me so much time. I would send it off to the client and we're like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. This sounds just like me. I'm like, well, because it is you. So it's just taking that idea that you could take a piece of content and, reuse it for different platforms just by putting a new spin on it, but keeping the core topic intact.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So in thinking about even when it comes to SEO, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too on how repurposing these content pieces can help us is if we're thoughtful with one piece of content and you have automatically, whether or not you realize it, you have some keywords in there, you have some main point in there. And if you can have that on one place and then take it across wherever you are talking to people online, there's just this through line. But what else do you maybe notice when it comes to content repurposing and SEO?
Like you said, taking those keywords that go from a blog, let's say, are typically the same keywords that could be found through Instagram and especially through Pinterest as well. There's usually like a very good correlation there. So absolutely, like that optimization, that's actually one of like the pieces of like my strategy is optimizing for the platform that you're moving a piece of content to. So it just works so well for sure.
Yeah. I know a little bit later we're going to walk through an example, but what do you notice are some of the things that you're able to pull from one platform and use on something else? And if that doesn't make sense, I can give an example.
Yes, example. So
Okay.
I can answer perfectly.
Because I'm doing this a lot with myself this year in Q1. When it comes to the podcast, for example, I plug everything into my podcast platform. I use Buzzsprout.
Okay.
I'm able to take the title that I've been really thoughtful about with the focus keyword and use it as the blog post title, potentially even use that as the email subject line or something like that. So that's one thing that I'm able to like copy paste all across. Is there anything like that that you see?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So yeah, I would definitely say like that like title part. And then usually the call to action is about the
Mm.
same. Just constantly having that common thread. Okay, what is the purpose of this piece of content? And pulling that throughout. So yeah, I would definitely say the title, the call to action.
I like that idea. Another one that I was thinking about, just in case anyone listening is like, what else? The image title. The image title, I actually also use, sticking with this podcast example, for the podcast thumbnail and then the blog post thumbnail, same image, same title, oftentimes. And then I usually will take that same image title and use that as the URL slug for the blog post. So there's just like so many things that we have. And I'm sure we're just like scratching the surface over here of what you have and then how you can like copy paste it with other things.
Oh yeah, 1000%. And like I feel like the more you do it, the more you find that like, oh, I could just reuse that again and again. Especially for seeing results with it too. Like if you're seeing traffic with that title, like absolutely. And if usually a podcast title really translates to a email subject line really well too.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many things that we can do. And I feel like it's just kind of like what you were saying with your career transition with niching down. It's like right under our noses, but we just
Yes.
don't know until someone calls it out.
No.
We just don't know.
No.
What are you seeing? Are there a few mistakes or one mistake that you're seeing business owners making when it comes to repurposing content?
Yes. I would say the biggest thing is when people hear repurposing, sometimes they're thinking I'm talking about copy and pasting from one platform to the other. And that's not what it is. So I like to use this chicken analogy because I'm a big foodie and obviously we're cooking all the time. And like, let's say you're cooking a Sunday dinner, right? And you're making chicken and mashed potatoes, the veggie, all the things. So you're eating that the first night. The next night, you're like, I'm too tired to cook, but we have chicken in the fridge. I don't have to start from scratch. But let me take that chicken and make a chicken noodle soup with it.
Mhm.
Bam, there you go. You're taking that chicken and you're not putting leftovers on the table again as the full meal that you had the night before. You're taking a piece of chicken, you're creating something new from it. So that is my way of repurposing is. So you're taking a piece of content, you have an originating piece, and you're just kind of like, if you're going big to small, like I'll say podcasts or blog to social, like you're kind of narrowing down that focus, like just taking 1 point from that blog post, 1 point from that podcast, and you are, dividing it up. Or if you're doing a social post, you're just making it longer. So you're keeping that core topic, but you're just putting a whole new spin on it.
I love that. You bring up a really good point. So you talked about going like social posts on Instagram and then blowing it up into a blog post or vice versa and taking a blog and pulling out a point and putting it on Instagram. Do you feel like there's a best way to approach? Like, do you feel like one way is better than the other?
I feel about this a lot. I feel like a lot comes down to preference. And I think it depends on what you prefer to write. For me, I have a very interesting brain. Like there are some topics like I could start with a blog and I could write all day. So some days like blogs just flow out of me and other times I'm like, oh, I'll start small and go big. For some people, they just despise writing. I know a lot of people like that. So for them, it's easier to start with a shorter piece of content like an email or a social post and then expand on it. And there's just so many ways of doing that because I really feel like for so long, people were saying people don't like to learn things on Instagram or, like education instead. I'm like, well, I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's changed, but people are still looking for information and you need more than just 3 lines, for a lot of what we do. Like you can't explain SEO in like 3 sentences on an Instagram post. You need a blog post to explain these complex topics. So yeah, I would say start with the type of concept that you like to write and then just kind of go and challenge yourself.
Yeah. And even you're making me think about the different types of ways that we could express ourselves. So some people don't like writing. Do you ever see like video or voice memos or even podcasts, like anything like that, where people could start with a different medium and then repurposing it into a different medium? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it is important too, like for podcasters to have a blog. And again, like I know some podcasters will literally just take the show notes and move it over as a blog. And I mean, like, okay, but kind of like finesse it a little bit because you're going to have different types of consumers out there. Some people like to watch, some people like to listen, some people like to read, some people like short, long. So I think that it is important to have those different variations there to help people. Now, I might be jumping ahead of myself. Like, don't hear that and get completely overwhelmed. I'm like, you want me to be everywhere? No, don't do that. You're going to stress yourself out. So again, I think a lot comes down to like your content style. If you are a video person, make your long form content YouTube. If you are a talker, do a podcast. The only non-negotiable I say is email marketing. Like, I think everyone needs email marketing. And then like one social platform that, again, you're comfortable on. If you don't like video, you don't like Instagram, then like leave it, go to Threads, LinkedIn, like find a place that you're happy with and where your people hang out. So that's what I call the holy trio. Like it's like I'll say social platform, but I really just mean like short form content, long form content, and email marketing. Get those 3 and you're set.
I love that. Tell us a little bit more about why you feel so strongly about email marketing, because I could make a guess. I definitely agree with you, but I want to hear what you have to share.
It's what we've always heard that like that's like the one place where you have direct access to your subscribers. And I forget where I listened to a podcast last week, and it was something along the lines of the people who subscribe to your email, they want to hear from you. Like they opted in. They're like, hey, I want to hear from you. And so many times we're like, oh, I don't want to bother them. Like, I don't want to email every week. I don't want to be a pain. I'm like, no, those people signed up. They knew what they were doing. Like, they can always unsubscribe, but you're not battling an algorithm. Yes, email deliverability is changing, but I still feel like it's the easiest way to get a hold of our people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And so the whole like Q1 thing with approaching content and writing emails first is because I realized that needs to be my non-negotiable, just like you said, because I get sales there. I can nurture people. I get tons of responses, and it may even be someone reads the email and then comes over and like leaves a voice memo for me on Instagram. It's really fun. And so I feel like it's a great place of connection. It's a great place of conversion. And I love the fact that now that I've done it for a few weeks, I can take the email and repurpose it as a blog post with SEO in there. I think it's definitely become one of my easier workflows. But I would love to know, how does email play into content repurposing? Like, and we'll walk through an example in just a little bit, but like, where might we be doing that? Like, would other people benefit from writing emails first, or should they leave that as email writing last? Hey, fellow podcaster, I see you out here wanting to do more with SEO, but not even knowing where to begin or what to do. Oh, and yeah, there are loads of episodes you should be blogging about, but like, how? I saw so many conversations just like this happening around me, and one day I just thought, I'm a podcaster, I'm an SEO show notes writer, I should make a resource. So I did. And now you can grab the SEO podcast show note and blog post templates. You get everything you need to go from podcast idea to SEO optimized podcast show note to SEOified blog post, which means you've got 2 long-form content pieces out here marketing for you 24/7. I even included video training so you know exactly what goes where and how to incorporate SEO for your podcast ASAP. Click the link in the show notes and grab your templates today.
For me, I tend to use it last in the way of like, I typically end up writing a social post or a blog post first, and then I do the email. That's just how my brain works. And it actually has worked out really well. Actually, before this call, I send emails every Thursday. So I'm like, okay, my weeks have been busy. I did not pre-plan, but I'm like, okay, what am I going to write about today? So I went to a blog post. Now, previously, I sent this blog post to my email list as a link. like kind of like a read more little highlighter. But I never gave them the content of that blog post in an email. So I'm like, okay, so let me take the tips from the blog and I threw it into ChatGPT, like the main bullet points. I'm like, okay, like repurpose this into an email, like chop it down. It worked. I do not copy and paste from ChatGPT. It just helps me kind of get started. I added a intro story. In this case, it was You've Got Mail. I just kind of correlated You've Got Mail to these like email, like becoming inbox favorite. And then my email was done. So that took me about 20 minutes just because I get crazy about writing and editing myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And I think that goes back probably to what you were saying earlier of like start with the thing that you're comfortable with. So if you have a blog post or if you're short on time and you have content out there, you can go and look to that. And there was even one time where I think it was maybe right after I rewrote my website copy last year, where I was like, oh, I say a lot of cool things in here that would probably help people understand more about SEO. I can repurpose even stuff that's on my services page or about page or homepage. Do you ever do that or see people doing that in a smart way?
Yes. So earlier this year, I had a VIP client that I was writing launch emails for. She was opening a group program and she was having a really busy week. But I'm like, I have to have one of these emails kind of tell her story because her story is powerful.
Mm.
So what I did, I went on her about page and I had it all right there. And she's like, Krystle, this email made me cry. She's like, you nailed my story. You nailed the emotion. I'm like, it was from your about page. Like I just kind of like elaborated a lot. I was like, but that's why, because it was already there. You just had to like, again, like just kind of, I say like, you just craft it more for, the purpose. It was a beautiful email because she just has a really powerful story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you'd be surprised the more you look through things. I always tell people your website, if you are a speaker, if you've ever given like presentations for memberships, for groups, whatever, go through your presentations. You have gems right there.
I love that. I was taking notes because that's so brilliant. Are there any other hidden places? I mean, you gave us quite a few, but are there any other hidden places that we can look for content to repurpose?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, your phone. I don't know if
Ooh.
anybody else is like me, like your notes app. I am constantly writing ideas in my notes app. I get inspired each time I listen to a podcast. I'm like, oh, like that's a really good quote, or this made me think about whatever. So like, and again, like not that that's repurposing, but like check your notes app, your freebies, go through, your socials. If you are a social poster, like all like that content could 1000% be repurposed. And sometimes even like your email funnels too might have some things in there. And I will say, this is another thing, guys. My one client, she has so much content and we needed to create a new freebie for her. And I literally just went through her Instagram and I was just copy and pasting things that she had given out on Instagram. And I put them in like a Google Doc for her to look over. And then we made it in Canva. Nothing was from scratch. Like we just had to add like an intro, outro, but like the core material of that freebie already existed. And that, I'm telling you, we all have it there. We just have to go out and find it.
That is brilliant. You're also making me think with even going back to freebies and stuff like that. I have a private podcast that is a freebie. We could even go into our guest podcast episodes because I usually listen back to my episodes and I find myself taking notes similar to what you were saying with, getting inspired. So that's one thing. And then even like opinions or hot takes or whatever connections, my brain is constantly connecting things. It sounds like yours is too. So even with like watching basketball leading up to March Madness, I'm like, oh, this, oh, that. It's just like the most random thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay. You mentioned AI. I'm not a user of it, but I love picking other people's brains who are, because I'm sure people listening are like, give me the AI stuff. Do you have like a hot tip or two on using AI when it comes to repurposing content?
Yeah. So, obviously it's best if you train your AI, and I'm sure you might have heard of like training it like a new employee. Like give it a full orientation of who you are, who you serve, tell it your personality, give it as much information about you. And I have some resources that I could like send you guys to people that I followed to train my AI. It's amazing. But basically you want to treat it like an employee. Again, just running down your offers, who you serve, but also throw in some of your favorite pieces of content that you've written. so that it could get a feel for your style, for your verbiage, so that it gets to know your voice. Once you have that ready, then each time you prompt it, you want to tell it how to act. So as an expert copywriter who specializes in blogging and SEO, like act as a copywriter who specializes in email marketing, like tell it how you want it to act, and then throw in the piece of content. Like this morning, I said, act as an expert copywriter who specializes in email marketing. Take this blog post and repurpose it for me in my brand voice. And it's that something out. It's not always perfect. You can argue back with it. I do all the time. Like, no, not good enough. Go again. Just tell it what to do. And if it's trash, whatever it gives you first, like push back. That's not my brand voice. That's not my brand voice. Let me remind you what I do again. Like you kind of have to do that. And then the more that you do it, it gets better and it saves you so much time.
Oh, this is so cool. So one thing I'm hearing as you're talking is like someone listening, I could imagine would be like, it sounds like I have to have all these pieces before I can do any kind of content repurposing. Is that true? And are there some things that you feel like we need to have in place?
I mean, to me, not necessarily. I'm kind of a messy action taker. So like what I would say, honestly, if someone was like listening to this, I'm like, how do I even do this? What I would do, go to wherever most of your content is, like wherever you love posting to. I think for a lot of people that might be Instagram. And then for a lot of your listeners might actually be blogging too. And secretly, I love you all because you have such big content. It's so much easier to go big to small. So start going through your stuff and just start even with 5 pieces of content. Save that link wherever, if it's Google, if it's Airtable, Notion, whatever. And look at that piece of content and just figure out what was the main takeaway there. How can I elaborate on this or how can I break it down? For me, like if you're writing, you have to do this for social, but if you're writing a blog post or email, what story? And now, Grant, I'm not talking about a novel, but like, how can I open up with this piece of content without just like, here are 3 ways to blah, blah, blah. Like that now. Add something to it to get people engaged. Add that core piece, add a call to action. You're good. And then on the flip side, if you're doing like social to blogging, then obviously that's where you're going to get a little bit more in place because you have to do the keyword research and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. This is really, really helpful. Would you be open to walking through selfishly one of my examples so that anyone listening might be able to like hear how this could actually play out?
Yeah, I'm going to take notes. I don't leave something new.
So I'm thinking maybe let's just start with this so I can kind of like have some tips when I'm going in and getting this podcast ready for people. So we have the podcast recording. I will listen to it and I will have the show notes that go in Buzzsprout. Where should I go next?
Ooh, and I had 2 clients who have podcasts. So this is so good. So yes, you're going to take those podcast notes. I generally will first go to the transcript and I tend to throw in the ChatGPT and I have it pull out main point. I have it pull out quotes and things like that. From there, I typically will make an email. For some reason, it's easier for me to go with blog post to email. But honestly, like you could just sit and take those bullet points and like for us today, maybe the first one is talking about not showing up everywhere. Like, oh, did you know? Like that would be like one email is like, did you know you don't have to show up everywhere at one time? Then the next one would be like the second point. So you're just breaking out those main pieces of the podcast into emails. And then again, like shifting those into social posts and then making a big blog post. Like there's so many different ways like that you could take, let's say that this podcast has 5 main points in it. You could group all those 5 main points in one email, or you could drip them out like 1 point each. Like there's so many ways that you could kind of mess around with it and literally fill a content calendar with maybe like, dare I say, 6 or 7 pieces of content. Like you could literally have months of content done for you. It blows my mind. Like the more I stay and I break things down, the more content you find.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So one thing I'm thinking about is, you know, there's going to definitely be people, and I was one of them, who are annoyed to hear themselves repeating things, or they feel like it's not worth it, or they're afraid to repeat themselves. Do you have a message for them?
I do. Do it anyway. Listen, guys, we all are just inundated with content constantly that we think that our listeners, readers, whatever, are hanging on to our every word, and they're not. Like, they don't know what they read last week. I mean, like, sometimes things are really good that they stick with us. Like, I'm kind of psycho where I do remember what people say. Not everyone's like that. But the more that you repeat yourself, I feel like it solidifies your brand messaging. Like, you become the person who knows about blah, 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 blah. You are the person who's always talking about this or that, or like your viewpoints. It doesn't always have to be tips. It could be like, she's really against blah, blah, blah. I can't think of an example right now, but I feel like repeating yourself just really establishes you as the brand expert in your niche. You could kind of like separate content-wise. Like, if you didn't want to do like a social post and an email on the same topic that same week, you could move it to the next week. Like, just kind of space it out if you want to, but don't be afraid. I know plenty of people. I'm like, she just talked about this yesterday on Instagram, and here it is in my inbox.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me just
No.
because, like, honestly, we're not always seeing things on Instagram. Or like, maybe I forgot to save that. We're busy. We're distracted. So just keep repeating yourself. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. I could not agree with you more. Okay, this has been amazing. I know that there's going to be people who are going to want to connect with you. So where can they find you on the internet?
Yes. Instagram and Threads. So it's Krystle_Straub, and Krystle spelled really crazy. So I'm sure, but you have that in the show notes for you guys. And yeah, just connect and let's hang out, talk about content, keep it things simple, and just entrepreneur life.
No kidding, right? This has been really helpful. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk about it, for demonstrating it, because I think this whole idea even came about because I was looking at an Instagram reel that you were sharing about how you took one of those podcasters' show notes and then repurposed it as, I can't remember if it was a blog or an email, but it was so magical. And I was like, can we talk about this?
1000%. I'm so happy you had me on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. All right, I will catch you next time. You know how business owners are getting burnout by social media marketing? Well, I help them go from feeling tethered to their phone 24/7 to having their content actually work for them by using the magic of SEO. It's incredible to see them getting leads from Google, even when life is lifing. How do we do it? With my 3-step SEO and Grow method, they easily go from frustrated, ashamed, and doubtful to empowered and excited by SEO. I know, believe it, it's true. All they really want is to have clients flocking to their websites without social media. And my approach gets them there. The first step of the SEO journey is understanding, getting familiar with terms, learning how to find the best keywords, getting a good foundational knowledge of SEO. It's where you start to see how simple SEO can truly be. You can be a part of this same adventure by joining SEO Foundations, my 5-week SEO mentorship program for entrepreneurs. Check out the details below and take advantage of the opportunity to save $150 for a limited time. I'll see you inside.